league, went straight for the title. No time to idle. I finna get it, put that on the Bible. This is survival. Gotta treat every move made like the final. One by a mile. Nobody believe it, they all in denial. Hey, look at me, look at me. Still in the show, that's the crook in me. They want me gone with the hook in me. Asking why is he here like I shouldn't be. I've been on grind since I old. 10,000 hours the motto. They see the bag is coming out, they flocking to me like I won the lotto. Dancing with the devil, there's no recital. I'm killing competition, ain't no revival. I shoot it to kill it, I'm aiming for vitals. I'm showing no mercy when facing my rivals. Snakes in the crash, they getting exposed. I know they be lurking, I'm watching them close. Acting like friends, but really they foes. Saw they be scheming and said adios. Get it, don't mind it. Ay, back with a vengeance, back on the grinds, back to the business. Ay, God is my witness, they watching my moves like shows they binging. Ay, best keep distance, all of my haters send best of wishes. I get to the bag with the quickness, no I don't need no assistance, no. Yeah, no playing it safe, I said let's get it, you say not today. What can I say, if you ain't gon' go for it, get out the way. Got no time to waste. Can't be with me if you're not at my pace. You're not at my level, you're not in my race. One foot on the gas, I'm pushing the brakes. Dancing with the devil, there's no recital. I'm killing competition, ain't no revival. I shoot it to kill it, I'm aiming for vitals. I'm showing no mercy when facing my rivals. Snakes in the crash, they getting exposed. I know they be lurking, I'm watching them close. Acting like friends, but really they foes. Saw they be scheming and said adios. Yeah. Get it, don't mind it. I gotta get it, don't mind it. I gotta get it, don't mind it.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Talking Tens. It's been a year since we've had some fun, but we've mixed up the format, and in a weekend where we're bringing another RaceSpot podcast, that's where all your discussion topics will be. Today, it's just about the drivers and seeing what they can do on the track as well. We'll see what is in store for us later on, some new additions to our feature set here, but delighted to bringing you back to RaceSpotTV and Talking Tent, and welcome in Kevin Ellis Jr. of the Apex Racing team. Kevin Ellis Jr., thanks for joining us. How are you doing this weekend?
Yeah, not too bad. Obviously, just off the back of a pretty positive weekend at Le Mans. Some ups and downs, but overall a good enough result going into the final round. So yeah, feeling pretty good.
Ups and downs are very much the story of sim racing, and especially at that sort of competition. We'll go through and talk more about where you are today, of course, sitting inside the Apex team house where you've been for almost 5-6 months now. But let's start where it all began. We had this conversation yesterday on the RaceSpot Talk podcast. Someone said that IndyCar drivers are not adaptable, but I find that quite amusing because your background before you even joined up with the Apex Racing team was as an Indy fixed driver. What do you remember about starting sim racing? How did you get started on this journey?
Yeah, it was a bit of a weird one. You know, I was on holiday with my family. I think it would have been maybe the summer of 2013, end of 2013, and I just happened to stumble across like the SPAG World Championship Grand Prix Series, and saw Gregor Houtu leading the race, and was like, oh, this is really cool. I heard that there was money involved. I was like, wow, that's really cool. You can make money from gaming. And then at the start of 2014, got a PC, got a little. Was it a Mad Catz MC2, the one that sort of wrapped around your legs, that steering wheel? I had one of them and got started with I tried doing road courses and with no force feedback and that kind of wheel, it just didn't really go well. So I was like, we'll go and do some IndyCar for a bit, and got a really cool group of guys, kind of took me in, showed me the ropes of iRacing and IndyCar in general, and I just really got addicted to IndyCar from then on. Spent like 3 years, I think, doing Indy fixed races, getting to like 6,000 iRating on Ovo or something like that. Coming really, really close to a few Indy 500 wins as well. Still haven't ticked off the big one yet. It's on my list, but yeah, that was kind of how I started out. And then, 2017 started my pro career on road.
Yeah, and so you very much started then on the fixed side of competitions and the oval side, and transitioned to road course racing. Growing up, were you a motorsports fan, or was sim racing kind of your first dive into the world of motorsports?
Yeah, I was always a huge fan of racing. My dad was always watching Formula One, so I'd kind of watch along as a kid as well. First sort of memory of Formula One was, I think it was Melbourne 2002, maybe. I think it was something around there. So I was probably 4 at the time. So I was really, really young. Had like the F1 2004 game and had them, all the way up through the years as well on console, until eventually I got into iRacing and was like, okay, this is a sort of step up from those games, and really got sort of knuckled into that.
I think a lot of people share that kind of start to their path on sim racing. I started with F1 2001, so not too long before you. And my first memory was really watching the season review of 2000 that came with that, and seeing the 3-wide, Spa, Mika Hakkinen, Michael Schumacher pass. I think it's very much a common thing. So you start then with the Apex Racing team and the academy kind of in, 2017, and straight into the World Championship fold, or how did that process to qualify for the top level of sim racing go for you?
Yeah, so once I got to 6K on Oval, I started to really notice I was plateauing iRating wise, and I was like, right, I'm kind of looking for a new challenge. I wasn't really too interested in NASCAR at that time, and the races were on really late for me, especially like the NIS races that I was wanting to do. So I realized I sort of had to have a bit of a change in sort of career path, if that's the right way to put it. So I signed up to the Apex Racing Academy, I think maybe the summer of 2016. And worked with them for about 6 or 7 months until the Road to Pro series started. I think back then it used to run over the winter, or it was something like that. It used to run like through season 4. Top 20, got a license. I finished, I think, 10th or 11th in the pro qualifier. So got into the World Championship. The first 4 rounds or so of that season, I was in the academy team, and then at Monza, I think it was round 5. It was probably around this time 5 years ago. A couple of guys had sort of dropped out from Apex UK and it left a couple free spots, and Alex Simpson sort of gave me the call up and gave me the opportunity to become a part of the team.
And 2017 was decent for you. I mean, finishing 13th in your first World Championship season is definitely something that I'm sure you were pretty happy about. But then it was the next year where you got your first podium. I think it was at Monza.
Yeah, I remember Monza. That was a crazy race. I think Martin Kroenke had like a 5-year streak on. He'd never finished off the podium in like that many years or something like that, and we brought an absolute rocket ship in qualifying, and Monza was always a really poor track for me. Even through testing and stuff, I was really down on beating Jamie. Come qualifying, those two guys done a really great job, got a 1-2. I think he got a little bit of a poor start and dropped back a little bit, but then Jamie was out front. And I think the call at the time, I still remember, it was like, Jamie, just start dumping battery at the start, let's put Martin under pressure and see if we can make something happen. And he dropped it at Ascari, and all of a sudden it was like, oh my god, Martin's out the picture. Mitchell had gotten a slowdown on lap 1, so that was our sort of two main competitors out the way, and it was looking good. And then obviously the mistake at Ascari with I think was it Pete and Dave Williams, they had coming together and clashed of two pit cycles, and then it was just me and Mac left basically. And probably the last time I passed Josh Rogers on track raw pace wise was back then. I still remember getting him in the last stint. That was probably the last time that I'd sort of beaten him on raw pace. But yeah, that was a mad race, really crazy race.
I kind of want to stop here for a sec, because I think one thing that really separates the good from the great drivers, especially on sim racing, where the requirement to understand what the car is doing in some ways is even more important, because you only get the feel through the steering wheel. It's crazy to hear how well you remember a race that was almost now 5+ years ago?
Yeah. There's another race from 2018 as well. Pete and I still go on about this on the regular to today. There was a race at Indianapolis road course, and it was in like the peak of the summer, and it was like a heat wave in the UK that weekend, and I think it was like 32-33 degrees Celsius in my room, and I'd just gotten a direct drive, and I got a harsh sort of wake up call. I was like, welcome to sim racing. There's a direct drive in the heat, in the UK where there's no air conditioning. And I still remember there was sweat like running out my glove and dripping off my elbow on the straights and stuff, and we were doing a 1-stop, and everyone else was doing 2 stops, and we were hanging on to the tires, like we were sliding everywhere, trying not to make a single mistake in this blistering heat. And it was, I think, even to this day, it was probably one of the most grim races I've ever had to do. Was the just between the heat and the tires, it was such a tough race. And there's definitely a few standout ones. Most races nowadays I tend to forget. Like if you ask me about what happened 3 races ago in Pesk, I probably wouldn't even be able to tell you what track it was at. But there's a few of these really standout races for sure.
So 2 years in the open wheel machines, and then of course the Grand Prix World Championship came to a close. We transitioned to this new era of the Porsche Esports Supercup. Before we talk about how things have gone the last 3 years, which kind of car do you prefer? You come, of course, from that open wheel oval experience background, but I'm sure now in those last couple of years you've really honed yourself as a tin top driver.
Yeah, it's funny, like back in the day when we were doing the MP430 side of things, I couldn't drive a tin top to save myself. You put me in a GT3 car and instantly I was whipping the thing. So when Pesk was announced, I was bricking it, because I was like, oh god, like I've done nothing but open wheel for sort of 4 years, and now I've got to try and adapt to tin tops, and to think where I am now, only 3 years on is pretty crazy. You put me in an open wheeler now and I won't be able to drive that, because there's not really been any reason for us to drive open wheeler as of recent. There's not really been any championships. The one that we did have, the car really wasn't up to par, so I didn't really waste my time with it. I went and done Rallycross instead. But even now, like prototypes for me are quite tough to adapt to. The LMP2 is a car that I tend to struggle in whenever I have driven it. So it's tough as a sim racer. You spend so many hours in the one car getting, trying to perfect it and be as good as you can be and learn every little nuance. So when you need to start swapping, especially between categories, like from GT3 to Porsche Cup, it's okay, but from GT3 to sort of open wheel, it's quite a big leap that for me personally, I find quite hard to overcome.
So 2019, right, that transition year, you had to then swap over to 2 tin tops, right? The VRS GT World Championship as well as the Porsche Esports Super Cup. What was it like in that first season? Of course, you got your first win as well, but I'm sure, you've been on a steady climb up since that first year as you adapted. 12th that year, 5th in 2020, and then 4th in 2021, and it's looking like you're going to continue that evolution this coming year. What was that first year like for you? Did you struggle? Did you enjoy it? Or what was the kind of memories that you have?
I remember having a really bad first round. I think it was at Barber was the very first race. I remember seeing the schedule when it first came out and I was thinking, what the hell is this? We got Barber in mid-Ohio around 1 and 2. I remember, nerves really got to me. And Barber, I think I off-tracked both laps, or I made really bad mistakes. I remember I was way in the back, like in the 30s. Jump-started race 1, and then in race 2, I think I got tied up in a big crash and was kind of like, welcome to Pesk. We knew it was going to be tough. A lot of really quick guys that weren't in F1 but where quick and GT cars were going to be coming over, so that sort of clash of talent was going to be really hard. Yeah, I didn't get to grips with it necessarily well at the start, but I think, as you mentioned, we did get a win at, I think it was at Watkins Glen sprint race, I think was the win. So, yeah, I mean, to look at where I started to sort of where I got to, I think I was definitely quite happy with that. But as you say, like only P12, I think it was in the championship at the time. So overall, the year didn't go kind of the way we wanted, especially coming off the back of a top 5 in the F1 championship the year before.
And when I look at those results out of year 1 to year 2, the thing that stands out to me most is your consistency. We know what PESC is all about. It's pretty physical, It can be pretty brutal, it's hard to stay out of trouble. What did you learn from 2019 that helped you go on a run in 2020 where you had 3 consecutive second place finishes as well?
Yeah, obviously there was some changes to the car. I think we had a tyre model update as well. Like, I remember the V6 tyre, I didn't really get on well with that. It was really susceptible to sort of micro-locking, and I struggled to sort of feel the limit of that. So I think the tyre model definitely helped me a little bit. It definitely helped with my sort of style. But, I kind of learned from 2019 that consistency was the sort of way to go. I knew I didn't have the best raw pace of anyone, so I just decided to try and maximise my biggest strength. I was like, well, you can't force lap time. You've either got it or you haven't. So, we can just be smart, try and get consistent results and see where we end up at the end. And obviously, that year it really did go well. We had a couple of really good results back to back, and really sort of was a springboard that year to continue on that momentum.
Before we talk about 2021, I want to take a step back to 2019. You know what's coming. Zach Campbell set me up for this very nicely. But there's a story behind you racing at the 2019 Daytona 24 Hours where you weren't running with the Apex Racing team. You were running with a group of feisty Italians instead.
Yeah, so Michele will remember this one well as well. I remember I got a message maybe a couple of weeks before the Daytona 24 to run with 1050 Barbanera at the time. That was the team that Michele was on. We were really good friends. We'd been doing Indy Fix and stuff for years, so we already knew each other. And I was like, yeah, you know what? They're on the prototype. They're probably around the same pace as me. Like, why not go and have a bit of fun? And obviously in Apex, we were pretty professional. Or definitely on the sort of higher end of that at the time, whereas 1050 was sort of a little bit more just sort of fun. So we hopped in. We had a very rough sort of stint plan. I remember I got in the car from 6 p.m. until 11 p.m. I'd done a 4 or 5 hour stint, and then I was meant to get out and go to bed. I was like, right, that's fine. Got out the car at 11 p.m. Someone jumped in for a couple hours. I don't know if it was Michele Ricci or Matteo Galotti. It was one of those two. They jumped in for a few hours, and then I think it was Ricci was meant to wake up, but never did. So I was like, right, well, I'll get back in the car at 2 a.m. and I'll just keep on driving until he wakes up. 3 or 4 hours go by, the sun has risen outside, it's 6 a.m, I'm still driving. I've been driving for 10 hours out the last 12, I'm falling asleep on the oval. I'm hitting into the apron and waking myself back up again because I kept turning into it. Eventually, Michele wakes up, gets in the car, I'm finally, I'm relieved, I can go to bed. I go to sleep, I wake up at maybe 45 minutes before the end of the race, and as I'm turning my screens on, I just see the car getting flipped at the bus stop. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I've had no sleep, I'm ruined, and as the screens are turning on, I just hear the RPMs drop of the car, and then I look round, my triple screens, to see inside the cockpit, and the car is just flipping in the bus stop into the barrier, and I'm like, well, I think we were running P3 or something at the time, we dragged ourselves into a podium spot somehow, and yeah, the car ended on its lid. I don't remember where we finished or if we even finished the race, but yeah. That was one of the grimmest nights of my life, I think.
Is that the most driving you've done in an endurance race, regardless of how many hours back to back you were doing? Is that the most time that you've actually spent behind the wheel?
It's definitely up there. I don't think I've done anything. I think I learned my lesson from that race. Ever since then, I'm never driving that long. But yeah, as time's gone on, it's gotten a lot more professional. So we've got stint plans sort of planned out to within 5 minutes accuracy of when people are going to be getting in and out of the car. So thankfully, I've not been put in that kind of position ever again to where I've had to do that. But yeah, whenever I think of endurance races, that one is burned into the back of my mind. just seeing that car getting flipped in the morning I've never had more heartbreak in my life than seeing that thing getting tipped over by a GT car.
I guess that's where someone like George Simmons comes in as well. We'll talk more about him maybe in a little bit. But let's go to 2021 then. Of course, a partnership with the Rahal Letterman Lanigan team, the IndyCar outfit that decided to jump into esports. You and Zach Campbell were representing them. And, well, it started off fantastically, winning your first feature race in the Porsche Esports Supercup.
Yeah, that was a fairy tale weekend. It was a little bit touch and go whether we were going to get them on board for that season or not. RLL were interested in getting into esports, and we gave them an opportunity to do so. It was very sort of last minute. The paints were getting done literally like a week before the race, I think. We had to get the car numbers edited. Like, we'd already submitted the numbers that we wanted, the team name that we wanted, and then I'm pretty sure we had to get them to edit everything after the fact because it was done so late. But it didn't really affect anything in the back end. Like, the team still operated the same. It was just Zach and I sort of raced under a different banner for that year. And I felt really good in testing. It was the first time in testing. I've been head and shoulders above the rest of the team, and I knew coming in was going to be good. I'd made a few changes to my sort of routine. I started trying to get into shape a little bit more and really sort of trying to maximize that side of things, and came into the race feeling really good. Got on track. Put in a really good Q lap, and I think that's really where the whole brake dragon thing started. Obviously, I was like, oh, that's a really good Q lap, and then I just see Coanda popping in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I was like, oh my god, like, what have we missed here? We managed to get on top of it in the race, get into that top 8 reverse in the sprint, and we brought one hell of a race car that weekend, and really allowed me to get out to, I think I had a 2-second lead. Mitchell gradually sort of wore that down with a help of the slipstream as well, and I don't know what my heart rate was on those last 5 laps, but I don't think it's been that high ever since.
And it was interesting. You mentioned when we were talking about that podium in the World Grand Prix World Championship. That name always gets me all sorts of tongue twisted. But you said that was the last time that you ever passed Josh Rogers on track. Of course, 2021. While it was another improvement for you, the reality was, even if you felt you were the leader of the team in terms of pace, you were up against someone who was just unstoppable that year.
Yeah, that's the hard thing with Pesk. Even with those Coanda guys gone this year, you've still got Seb, you've still got the rest of the Coanda guys, you've got Diogo Pinto. The talent is just sort of never ending. But 2021 especially, Coanda, credit where credit's due. Granted, Brake Dragon was involved, but it was the same for everyone. Like, we knew kind of how to do it after round 1. Everyone sort of done their homework, and even still, they were just able to execute better. And Josh was just, it's hard to sort of praise someone when they're kicking your arse every single week, but there comes a point where you have just got to respect what they're achieving, and what he was able to do in that car. For the 3 seasons that he was in it, even though he didn't win it in 2020, he was still unbelievably quick. Some of the Q laps and the times you'd see him put in, it was just beyond belief. So yeah, that year it was an improvement. We grabbed a win or two and had good results, but yeah, as you say, it was just unfortunate that there was a couple guys in that series that really just were on top of things, and it were really, really hard to dislodge from the top few spots.
Well, and now that 3 or 4 of those Coanda drivers are gone, this year has been a remarkable run of consistency for you, other than the first round where, let's be honest, things did not go well. You've been inside of the top 10 for every single race since then. You've just come off the race at Le Mans. We'll talk about that very briefly as well, but still in the title hunt as well. What does that mean for you when you reflect on the journey that you've gone on over the last 5 years? You mentioned never really thinking that people could make money out of this. You're not just making money out of this now. You are very much a full-time sim racer. Yeah,
it's been a crazy sort of progression over the years. I've sort of accepted that I've not got the best raw pace in the world, but I like to think that my consistency and even just my execution on the day, even at Le Mans, my raw pace wasn't anything special. I think my PB was like almost half a second off what Alejandro had, but when it comes down to it, I know what I can do, and I just sort of do it, and it bails me out 9 times out of 10. As you say, Hockenheim just didn't really go well, and looking at the position we're in now, it stings a little bit. We missed a little bit in terms of Brake Dragon, but again, I didn't execute myself. First race in the facility, it was sort of a bit of a learning phase. But even still, I just didn't really put it together in qualifying. Then in the races, once you're back there in the hornet's nest in the sort of mid-20s, it's always going to be tough to salvage a result from there. So, as the season's gone on, we got on top of things. We bounced straight back at Catalunya, and it's just sort of been a steady ride until then.
I want to talk about the team house, but first I want to talk about things which aren't road racing. Last year you did your first World Championship outside of the road racing license ladder. Got to jump into the iRacing Rallycross World Championship. I know it was a bit of a tumultuous experience for you, but you and indeed the Apex Racing team have been one of the leaders in that championship since it started back in 2017 or something. What was the experience like for you? How different was it in terms of preparation for you compared to what you usually do with the Porsche Esports Supercup?
Yeah, it was a massive change. Obviously, I'd been watching the series. I'd been spotting for John and Johan over the years, so I knew kind of what to expect coming in terms of how crazy it can be and some of the things that we'd have to do to be quick. We had a really great team. The guys were, as you say, they were competitive every single year. We had Johan was the reigning champ at the time, and then coming into it, John was looking really good, and obviously the season before as well. So I knew that I had sort of the top two guys in the series to work with and bounce ideas off of. Pro Q went really well. Obviously, iRating wasn't really where I needed it to be, but it sort of worked out for us. We were in sort of second and third split most weeks and was able to sort of clean up and sort of bang in 70, 80 iRating a week and kind of get up there. And yeah, once we get into the series, I don't really remember a whole lot from the series, in all honesty. Like, I remember a few rounds. I remember Iowa being really good, but it was a completely new experience for me, and I kind of had to learn from the ground up. There was a few things I could transfer from the road, but for the most part, it really was just a clean slate. And even looking back on it now, there's things that I learned at Rallycross that have actually helped on the road side of things. As silly as it sounds, but like car positioning and stuff like that, even just on a hot lap, like the accuracy that you needed in Rallycross was just sort of one step up from road. There was these little patches of grip that you had to hit that just we weren't used to as road drivers. So small things like that have sort of crossed over and helped. I'm glad I've done it. In hindsight, it was a great experience. We won Rookie of the Year, so it's another achievement that I can be proud of. And obviously we had RLL on the car again, which was awesome to represent them for another year. And yeah, all in all, it was a positive experience. Top 5 in my debut season, and almost got a win a couple of times. We couldn't quite get it, but we took a couple P2s and Rookie of the Year. It certainly wasn't all bad.
You only didn't make it to the feature in 2 rounds, 2 podiums, the second at Iowa, the second at Charlotte. Definitely something that, even though I know you're not planning on returning to, is something that you should look back on with pride. But there's something else that you have expressed interest in. Just before we went live, we were talking about your potential challenge for an eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series spot in maybe the next couple of years. Of course, it kind of goes back to your roots. You started on the ovals, but in the Indy cars. You mentioned you didn't have much intrigue about NASCAR when you first got started. What's changed? And of course, what do you think about the actual qualifying process? Because it's a long slog, almost a full year of qualifying races, and it will clash with your, of course, commitments in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup.
Yeah, so I think mainly what's changed is I drive things with roofs now. So that I got used to the extra weight in terms of the cars. That's really where the competition is as well. The money that's up for grabs over there is obviously really good. You get to get involved with real life brands, which is something we don't quite have the luxury of doing in PESC. But yeah, as you say, the qualifying side of things is really tough. The Road to Pro series and the trucks. It runs at the same time as PESC, and with the position that I was in PESC, it was pretty silly to sort of try and not really put PESC on the back burner, but have a secondary series that needs as much time and attention as PESC does to try and balance the two. One is hard enough. We saw when Mitchell done it, and as I said to you before we went live, I think Mitchell was probably the best at sort of adapting to different disciplines and stuff like that. He always has been over the years. He's been so good at just being able to drive sort of whatever, whenever, and even he struggled. So when I saw Mitchell struggles, it kind of made me a little bit hesitant, but he's really done a great job at adapting over there, and it's given me a small glimmer of hope. But obviously I don't have many criticisms of Apex, but the one that we do have, obviously, so we don't have an oval team, so that obviously doesn't help things either. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough old slog. PESC is the priority ultimately, so we'll see. Hopefully things change, situations change, and we can maybe have a run at it in the near future.
Let's talk about this team house. It was announced last year. You guys have moved in. I think it was December, January, as you got set up for a new World Championship season. What's changed? Of course, you've got 4 or 5 guys, in the facility almost on a daily basis. It will surely mean that you're practicing a lot more with your teammates closer. Have you found that you're able to communicate a little bit more clearly now?
Yeah, that's the big one, I think, is communication. Being able to actually sit down in the same room as a teammate and discuss ideas and stuff. Although you can do the same online, it's just not quite the same. Until you sort of experience it, it's quite hard to explain. When we've moved in here, I think there's always a boost of morale, especially when there's a really good result, like the 24 Hours of Daytona. That was such a great weekend. We had Alex here, we had Lee here, we had our crew chiefs here, like Mark Tranter and George Simmons, our 2 strategy guys. We had a bunch of guys. Dane Baird was here as well. We had so many people here working from the sim center, and when Pete crossed the line to win that race, and we could all sort of celebrate out in the car park with bottles of champagne and just like share the whole weekend with everyone and stuff like that. It's just, you don't get that when you're on Discord or on TeamSpeak, wherever you tend to use, like being in person. And yeah, it's just a different experience, and it's a great place to be. Obviously, it's a little bit awkward sometimes if a teammate has a bad result and you have a good one. Sometimes, it's a little bit, can be a little bit, you feel bad celebrating in a way, but it's just part of it. Like we have good races, we have bad races. Everyone understands that. So, all in all, it's definitely boosted my performance. We've taken a few steps in here as well to boost performance, and it's definitely allowed us to achieve a level that we couldn't have back home.
I guess that's the highs of lows of racing, whether it be real or virtual. I kind of have to ask, though, what's one of the more difficult things that you struggle with? I've always wondered what it's like to be in that environment and to maybe not be able to disconnect from sim racing in the same degree, because you're all in that same environment, you're all pushing for the same thing, which is to win races. And you guys at the Apex Racing team always seem to have some race coming up, whether it be in the World Championship level, BMW Sim GT Cup, or even some of the VCO Esports Racing Leagues that we've seen, Jamie Fluke, for example, do. What's the biggest challenge that you've found so far?
I think it's actually easier to switch off when you're here, because you have one building. Obviously, we've got 2 buildings. One of them is converted into like apartments, and one is just purely for sim racing. So, when I was back home, you're sat in the rig sort of 10, 12, sometimes 14 hours a day. Like you play your games in the rig, you do iRacing in the rig, you do everything from the rig. Whereas here, you're only in the rig when you're driving, and then apart from that, you go back to your apartments and you can chill in your room. You can, we can chill in the living room and watch some movies or watch F1 or anything. So I find that it's actually easier to disconnect here, and it's a lot easier to sort of forget about sim racing, because you're not sort of stuck in a simulator for as many hours in a day. It keeps things a little bit fresher as well. Like when you do get in the rig, you're in it for a reason. You're not in there just to sort of sit in your arse and do nothing. You're there to work, and when you get in the rig, it's time to get on with it and get down to business. So yeah, like it's sort of actually worked the opposite way to what I thought it would. It's a lot easier to switch off, and obviously the massive positive for me is just having a stable internet connection as well. Back home, someone even opened a tab on their phone and I'd know about it, the latency bar would start going crazy and everything else, whereas now, we've got gigabit, so it's one less thing to worry about in the back of my head. I can just, get on track and drive without worrying about dropping out the session or something.
I don't talk to Coanda about their issues with their internet to their house.
Yeah, I've seen it, yeah.
I know you got 2 apartments and 2 drivers are living in each of the apartments. I know Johan Hart hasn't moved just yet. The plan for him was to do that after the conclusion of the Porsche Supercup. Who are you rooming with?
Yeah, so Pete and I are on one side, and then John and Jimmy are on the other. Pete and I have always been really good mates ever since I kind of got into Apex, so it kind of made sense. Ours 2 were always the sort of closest out of everyone, so it was like, right, well, Pete and I would sort of pair up, and I don't think Jimmy or John really cared either, so they didn't really mind who it was. It's good fun. Pete and I would be running around just doing weird stuff at 1 a.m, like playing football or something, just doing random shit at like 1 in the morning and stuff. So it's been really, really fun. It's a great environment to be in, and yeah, really, really grateful for Apex Virtual Racing School, all the guys that have sort of made this that's possible. We started sim racing for fun, and now look at where we've been able to take it. It's it's been crazy.
So what's a typical day like for you then during the week? I think, race day, we kind of know what that's probably about. Get ready a couple of hours before, sit down, do a bit of practice, eat a meal or whatever. But what's the typical day-to-day like, especially with your responsibilities with part of the Apex Racing Academy?
Yeah, so for a pest race, for example, sort of get up. For me, I normally get up 9:30, 10. I'll wake up and then I'll get up maybe 11. Grab a coffee, something to eat, and then come over maybe 1 or 2-ish. Do a couple hours of practice, be that race stints or some traffic practice with the guys, or even some qualifying stuff. Chill back, have dinner, chill for a little bit, and then we'll come back over maybe 7 or 8 p.m. Do a test race or two. Really, put ourselves under that sort of 1-lap qualifying pressure. It's something that's quite hard to replicate. You never really get nervous until you're in qualifying in the session, and obviously that's the last time, or that's the last place that you want to start having a bit of a mental breakdown and not able to perform. So we'll do a lot of test events, put ourselves under that 1-lap pressure, get used to the environment, get used to that sort of having to execute perfectly with one try, and then we'll sort of wrap up 10, 11 o'clock, maybe have a bit of a debrief, look at some replays, look at some telemetry, and sort of wrap up from there.
Right, so a couple more questions. We're running a bit long, but I've been enjoying this chat a lot. I want to start with what's on the horizon for you. Of course, just one round left of the Super Cup. I'm sure you'll be doing some BMW Sim GT Cup races here and there. Are you thinking about maybe doing some other simulators? We've seen Jamie, for example, running the Esports Racing League. I know you've got a story about that.
Yeah, after PES gets a little bit sort of cloudy at the moment. We've got, as you say, the last round. Winning the title was going to be a bit of a long shot, but we'll give it 110 and see where we end up. Ultimately we've got to be proud of what we've achieved. I'm definitely proud of what I've achieved this year. So we'll do what we can there. As you mentioned, we've got BMW Sim Cup coming up. I'm going to need a good few rounds to try and get myself back in at the final there. I think I'm on the outside looking in at the minute, but we should be all right as long as we can get on top of the physics, as weird as they are to drive, and as much as we don't like them. We just need to sort of get on with it and go. We've got the special events, of course, Watkins 6 Hours, not too far away, Spa 24, stuff like that. In terms of the other simulators, not really too sure yet. I'm not fully sold on them. With what happened to Jamie in that R Factor race, that was enough alone to sort of put me off for a while. It was crazy, actually. At the time, I was sitting doing a coaching session, and Jamie's competing sort of 10, 12 feet behind me. And that car, I don't know what happened, the car lagged out and then appeared inside his car. And I have never heard a direct drive make it, the entire floor in here was vibrating with how loud his rig was. And I actually felt bad for him, because the Twitch clip that most people have probably seen, it cuts off. That went on for another 2 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Jamie had to try and get out of the rig, not get his knees clattered by the bottom of the wheel, get out and turn the thing off at the plug, because it just wouldn't turn off, the game wouldn't close. So yeah, that alone was enough to kind of put me off for a bit. Obviously we've got Rennsport coming up soon. I'll be flying to Munich next week or this weekend coming. So obviously very grateful to have that opportunity to go and test that. So yeah, I mean, as I say, the summer's pretty open. Obviously on the business side with Apex, we've got a lot of stuff we need to do off the track, so that will probably take up a lot of our time as well. So yeah, as I say, we're just going to play it by ear and see where the year takes us.
So a couple of questions from our chat that I thought I'd throw to you. We mentioned how you started with the IndyCar. We've, of course, seen you in the iRacing Indy 500 a couple of years. What's your thoughts on the race? I'm sure that's one that you would love to check off the bucket list at some point.
Yeah, the Indy 500 is a massive one. Being in the group that has won it so many times as well, it's there's always someone winning it, and I've come so close so many years. There was 1 year before I even joined Apex, I was working with Scott McLaughlin. And he won the race and I was P2. I remember Alex still gives me crap for that, because Scott and I were 1 and 2 on the final restart, and Scott started doing the snake, the weaving down the straights, and that really wound Alex up a fair bit, because they just couldn't get a move on us. And came second there. I think I came second to Trano once. I think I came second to McKelly 1 year as well. I have won one of them. I've won the Sunday race, but not the actual broadcasted one that people sort of care about and recognise. So obviously the way scheduling works out every single year, somehow iRacing keep clashing the two events with the event with PESC. I don't know how they manage it, but you know, it's sort of meant I've not been able to do it. You know, there's a lot of beef and a lot of controversy in that. You know, there's a lot of petty rubbish that goes on with a lot of the teams in there. But
tell me about it.
Yeah, like I'm just not interested in all that. You know, just kind of shut up and drive is my kind of opinion. You know, everyone's so worried about what each other are doing over there. It's pretty funny, but you know, we'll try and do what we can. Scheduling is sort of what it is. So hopefully we'll be back on the grid next year.
Looking forward to that. And the second question that for, I think, one of your Apex Racing Team supporters, when heading into a crash, how do you manage to stay so calm and so cool? It's something that I think a lot of the best sim racers really have managed to figure out.
Yeah, I don't really know. You know, your sole sort of job as a sim racer, or just as a competitor in general, is just to remove all emotion from everything that you're doing. You know, it's something that I haven't been great at in the past. I think like moving here this year, and especially being on stream a bit more, you know, you have to be careful, obviously.
That I know too. Yeah,
but you know, typically it's, you know, you just gotta try and just get on with the job and just keep thinking big picture. You know, you can't maximize an opportunity if you're angry. You know, you can't maximize your performance when you're wasting mental energy on being upset about something you can't control. So yeah, when you get in the rig and you put the gloves on, you've just got to sort of switch off and be a bit of a zombie almost, and just get on with it and just do what you can.
Something I wish I knew how to do. When I did Sports Car Open a couple of years ago, I remember Paddy Wolf in the LMP1 car. I was in the P2s, came to lap me at Barcelona at the final sector. I was so irritated with him. I said a couple of expletives and then said the next time he comes around I'm going to murder him. He found the clip and sent it to me the next day. That was a fun chat. Although,
Yikes.
To be fair, Paddy actually was pretty fun about it. He realized I was not being serious because I would never do that. Alright, so we'll close this chat for now and we'll head into two new things that I'm very excited for on Talking Tents. So the first up is our turbo round, where we're going to put 60 seconds on the clock and I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. Now, I'll make it clear, you're allowed to pass on some of these questions. However, we will definitely look down on you if you do that. We want your honest opinions, okay? So I'm going to start the clock, 60 seconds. Make your answers short. We want to get through as many of these as possible. If you get through all 12, I'll send you a virtual cookie. How about that?
All right, sounds good.
All right, so favorite pre-race meal?
Sloppy Giuseppe.
Your favorite car?
None of them.
Favorite track?
Nordschleife.
God, best answer. Your favorite race to watch in the real world?
None of them.
Your favorite race that you've been in?
The SCO Spa 24. That was fun.
The worst race that you've been in?
The first round of PESC this year.
Your favorite teammate?
Pete.
Oh, I thought that was the one you passed on. Your favorite real world series to watch?
F1.
Your first major win?
Interlagos 2021 PESC.
Your first World Championship race?
Sebring 2017.
Fiercest rival?
Probably Sebastian Job, I guess.
Well, I was going to ask one more question, but that's it. Time was expired. So you got through 11 of 12. That's not bad. And you didn't pass on the teammate question. I am very impressed.
Sorry to the rest of Apex, but you know, a room with a guy, I can't not say Pete.
Right, and now this is the thing that I've most been looking forward to, and I know Zach Campbell has been looking forward to the most.
Okay.
We're calling this the Master of the Dump Truck. We've got a terrible setup. Pete's had a couple of, Kevin's had a couple of cider laps at Oran Park North A. It's the old Porsche 911 Cup car, and he's going to get anywhere from 3 to 5 laps. If he can do it in 3, we'll let him have it. If he can survive, that's the most important thing. Kev, you've tried the setup out. What's it been like?
I mean, calling them laps is generous. I don't know how the hell he's made this bad. Like I remember the 991 was quite grim to drive, but this is just not even a car. This is terrible.
Right, so we'll let you roll out, and we'll let you talk over this if you want. We'll do this Top Gear style. It's all up to you from here.
Okay. I have no confidence in the car. I don't know why the diff's doing that. I remember seeing that Zach put positive rear camber on the car. So for anyone who doesn't know, you just don't do that. For some reason, that wasn't bad enough, so he put crossweight in it as well, so the car has right hand down. Oh my god. It has permanent right hand down as if it's got steering damage, and then there's maximum rear toe, which just in iRacing makes, I don't even know what it does to the car, it just ruins it really badly, and yeah, we're off. It's alright, we're just cooling the tyres off. Yeah, I've never driven anything this poor in my life. Like, everything I know about like driving a cup car just goes out the window with this. Like, slow to threshold, like being nice and smooth on the inputs, none of it helps. Oh god. I know this is slow, but I can't do anything about it. It's just got no grip. Yeah, Zach, I know you're probably not watching right now because you're driving to Indy, but when you see this, I've driven some crap sets from you over the years, but this tops the lot. This is awful. This makes the IndyCar sets that he used to build feel good. And it's an off track, that's alright. We'll just be... Alright. So on the brakes, it rotates more than anything I've ever felt in my life. And then on throttle, it just spins the inside rear tyres up. And if I'm being fully transparent, I'm not actually driving, I've just turned the FFB up to maximum. And the direct drive is just steering the car now, because I have no control. Alright, this is good. Tires are warming up now. I think, right, let's not go off the track here. Nice and patient. Into the right, first gear. It's getting loose again. I'm sweating already. Arjuna, what did you say Zach done?
46 something.
What?
He did have much more laps than you're going to have.
Oh, I've got to slow down. My finger. Okay.
We didn't talk about it. Kev is driving with a broken finger right now.
I think it's broken. There's something really not right with it.
Okay, I'll tell you what. This is a gone lap. We'll make it a 4-lap challenge. You get one more, I think, after this.
One more? Okay. Oh my god. Alright, we better let the tyres cool off a little bit, then I think they've already overheated. Even though we haven't gotten out of second gear, really. They'll still find a way to overheat in this thing, so we'll just take it easy here. Alright, this is it. This is the money lap. This is for the PES title. If I ever rocked up to a PES race with something like this, though, I'd probably lose my job. Oh. Alright, we went purple. That's a good sign. Purple's the magic colour. Oh, there's not enough steering lock to get through there. Oh, there is, but barely enough. Alright, I'm actually fairly happy with that lap, to be honest. 46.7.
That's close enough to Zach Campbell that we're not gonna let him hear the end of that one. That was how
I will take that.
How difficult was that on a scale of 1 to 10?
Oh mate, 11. That is the worst. Like, I've driven some crap over the years, but credit to Zach, that's the worst thing I've ever driven.
I'm going to send him a
Hands
message
down.
as soon as we're done here. He's going to be delighted. So, you did, what was it, a 46.702. That's our first benchmark lap time here. Thanks for joining us, Kev. Really appreciate the chat. It's always fun. I know you and I kind of talked about this, like at the end of 2020 when we first did Talking Tents. It's been a long time, but I'm glad to have finally had the chat. One race still to go in the Super Cup. We wish you the best of luck.
Thanks very much. Appreciate you for having me, and I just want to say hi to my sort of friends and family back home if they're watching this. Miss you guys. I'll be back soon.
Kevin Ellis Jr. joining us from the Apex Racing Team House. Well, it's going to wrap us up for the return of Talking Tent. We're going to try and do this every 2 weeks on a Sunday. Broadcast permitting, you know how busy our schedule here is on RaceSpotTV. We'll talk to the best in sim racing and we'll get them out on track and see if they can beat the 46.702 that Kevin Ellis Jr. has just laid down in the Master of the Dump Truck Challenge. Do remember to check us out on all of your favorite podcast platforms. The audio recording of this will be up in just a few hours' time, but you can watch us here live on RaceSpotTV every couple of Sundays. Thanks, Kevin, for joining us. We'll be back in a couple of weeks' time with another fascinating chat. We'll see you then. Thanks for joining us.